Welcome back to the Git series of the CodeMeMM screencasts. My name is Gabor Szabo. In the previous episode, if you haven't watched it, then do go and watch it. In the previous episode, we created a new file in an empty Git repository, and in the working directory of an empty Git repository, and it was an empty file and called readme.txt, and we added it to the Git repository. Now let's change that file and see how we can record that change. So we opened the file explorer. We went into the directory where the file is, so it's in the up directory. It's called readme, and I right click on it, and then we can use either just a notepad. I think, let's see, yeah, that's the notepad. Okay, so you open the notepad for now, and I type here and type in some text here. So let's say first line. Brilliant. Okay, so and that's it. I'm closing it, and when I'm closing it, I'm going to ask me if I want to save it. So brilliant, now I saved it. It says the size is 1 kilobyte. It's smaller, but it may take up some more space. Anyway, we have the file changed. You can of course use any editor you want. You can use Notepad++, which is much better than Notepad. Actually, you can open it now with Notepad++ just to see. Same stuff, same code inside, and so you can do that, or you can use any other editor or IDE of your programming language and to create an edit and create a file. Don't use Word or anything like that, because those Word, for example, is going to create a binary file basically, and then Git doesn't know much to how to show the difference between two versions. So just use some text-based file text editor. Anyway, now we go back to the Git bash screen. Of course, if you are using Linux or Mac, then you can also use your favorite editor. You can use Vim or Emacs or any other editor, just Nano in case, or whatever, to edit the file. So now we are back in the terminal, and just to remind you, we are in the BW showing that we are in the app directory, so it's the same directory. Now I can type in ls-l. It shows that the file is there. Actually, if you look here, it shows that now it has 10 bytes in it, so that's actually the content. You can use cat in order to show what's actually content of this file, but it's not that neither of them is related to Git, so they are both bash commands. What Git is, for all the commands of Git start with Git, so that's gonna be easy to recognize. So Git status, remember Git status is always good to use Git status. So now we are using Git status, and it shows us that, well, see, we are still on branch master. We haven't changed the branch. We have not touched the subject yet, but now we can see that the change is not staged for commit. So as I mentioned, there is the working directory where there are changes, and then when there are changes, and there can be changes, and then there is a staging area that's where you sort of mark the files. You don't really move the files. You can mark the files, you mark some changes that they are in the staging area, that they are about to be committed, but they are not there yet. So there's note in the staging area, nothing there. But there is a file called readme.txt, so it's not staged. Okay, these are not in the staging area, right? So there's a file readme.txt which is modified. At this point, it says all kind of stuff. So you can say git add to actually move it to the staging area. Git restore if you want to discard the changes that you made earlier. None of them we are going to do that now. Well, we're going to do the git add later. And then you can use git. Well, that's what it says. That git add first, and then git commit later to add the files. And you could use git commit -a. Don't do that for now. Do step by step the things. So you might want to, at this point on the terminal, you might wonder what changes you made. This can be because you made it an hour ago and you went for lunch, and then you came back and you sort of forgot what were the exact changes, and so you would like to see it. So you can type in git diff, and it will show you the changes that were made. At first, it's going to be a little bit hard to read, but the lines here, so this says, but you'll get used to it. So first, it might be hard to read, but you will get used to it. And actually, there are going to be various other tools that are much more visual to show you the difference. But for now, let's do is the command line. It's good enough for now. So what can you see that the file called readme.txt has changed. It just sort of prefixes them in this name A and B. So they basically have two versions of the file, one which was committed and the one that and that it's in Git, which is empty if you recall, and the other one is that which was after the changes you made, so adding this or me made after this first line was added, and that's actually the content. So this is what changed. So the lines that start with a plus is also green, in case you see that. So it's and in case you configured actually your environment. So it seems that by default this installation of Git comes with color highlighting, but in some cases, especially older versions of installations, they didn't come, so you would have to configure this to see the colors. Otherwise you would just see black and white. Anyway, the plus lines are the lines that we added, and later on we'll see other lines that were removed from your change. And there's just a command that new line at the end of the file. That's because we just typed in a line of text and didn't press new line, so there's no new line actually in this file. You can disregard this for now. So these were the changes, but we want to add it and we want to commit the changes. So we type in git add and the name of the file, just as we were told here, git add. So now it's moved to the staging area. If I type in git status again, you can see that it looks different. It says the changes to be committed. This is basically the staging area, and it says this is the modified file. It's also green in case you see that. That might help you to see notice the difference. But the text is different. So it says changes not staged. These are not staged yet and not in the staging area. These are in the staging area. So the next step is going to be git commit -m and add first line. Brilliant. So this command is actually even longer now than the change. Sometimes this happens, usually not. Usually the explanation is not that long. But it depends. There are projects, I saw projects where the commit messages were really extensive and really helpful, and there are many other projects where they were less so, let's say. Anyway, so you type in git commit -m and then the message, and we'll see later on what happens if you forget to type in this -m. So for now, this is what you do. Press enter, and then it records the new change. So you can see that it has a new ID, a new SHA. So this is the identification of this change. It says one file change. Brilliant. So now type in git status again, and it says everything is fine, everything is clean. Remember, this doesn't change your working directory. So some of the commands of Git do change, but when you add a file to the staging area, this doesn't make any change in the working tree. It just records in the Git repository something. When you commit a file, it doesn't make any change in the working tree. It just records the new changes in the Git repository. There are going to be later on Git commands that actually change your working directory, and well, you have to know about them, and well, usually when you use them when you want to change, change your working directory. So what can we do here now? Well, we can also, at this point, we can use git log to see your changes, and that's it, but it's probably for a later recording. Anyway, in this case, just so to show, here is the ed8 something, and this is the same thing. So this is the beginning. So what it showed here is the beginning of the full SHA. So this long thing, which looks gibberish, this is the SHA, which is the identification of your changes. Theoretically, it's unique in the whole world. In fact, well, there could be same IDs in different repositories, but it's very unlikely. That's is the message. And then in here you can also see the commit messages we had, so the initial commit and the first line. So these are the commit messages, and that's why you will start seeing why it's important, because with git log you can see your history, which is very short history now, but you can see this history, and then you can, based on this history, you can see who was the author. In this case, it's both of them are me. but in a project where multiple people contribute, then you'll see multiple people here, the date when it was committed, and then the commit message. So the commit messages are going to be important. Anyway, this is how you make a change to a file. So for making the change, you can use any tool, and then use Git to record the change to make it permanent in the history of your Git repository. That's it for now, and let's see for the next part what we are going to do.